to Muse on the Mic. I'm Riley.
And I'm Emily. We're so glad you guys are back here again to join us for another awesome episode of MUSE On The Mic. Make sure you subscribe to the Patreon. You can find the link below and follow us on social media. You'll see all of those links in the caption and description below as well. And just a quick introduction. We are the owners of a spicy, happy ending massage parlor in Toronto, Canada. And we're here to talk about all of our stories and our tales and our trials and tribulations and definitely the ups and the downs because there are plenty. We've been open for 14 and a half years, and so we've got a lot to talk about. And today, I think we're going to dive into a bit of a heavy subject and something that affects us on maybe not a daily basis, but continuously along the course of being owners. Definitely affects workers in this industry. And I'm sure on levels that we don't always understand for clients too. So if they have stories to submit, do that, guys, either in the caption or send us an email if you want some privacy and anonymity. Let us know if we can share your story. So we are diving into privacy and discrimination specifically because that happens to sex workers and anyone sex worker or sex industry related in all kinds of forms and capacities. And it can be super frustrating. I find personally, I try to keep a grain of salt of understanding that not everyone has the same morals as me. Not everyone has the same, structure of life or life experiences that I've had and so on and so forth. There's nothing wrong with being conservative. I think it errs on the side of a problem when it crosses the line of just that's not for me to being discriminatory about it, because then it becomes illegal in the sense of like how the world operates nowadays, especially in a city like Toronto that is a complete, mosaic and melting pot of every single culture you could think of in the world is here in Toronto and highly represented. We're around multiculturalism all the time. And that in turn means different walks of life. So different beliefs and different religious standpoints, different political beliefs, and different opinions about sex work. And some of those opinions drive me nuts, and some of them you have to at least understand where people are coming from. But being discriminated against for basic normal things can be really frustrating and really upsetting. So I'm going to throw the mic to you, Riley, first off, because I know you had a recent experience with it that was beyond the pale of not just frustration, but length of time that this went on for. So tell the people all about it.
Yeah. I had a recent move a few months back, and it was a situation that I was trying to move pretty quickly. And I literally couldn't find a place to live. I found many suitable places, a few that I really loved. And the minute they found out what I did, it was just completely off the table. I remember even saying to my agent at one point to one of the houses that I really liked, I said, what if I get like someone else, like thinking about like a family member or someone to help me, or could I speak to them? Like if they just know me, they're going to understand. I thought if there's like this human connection, and he's like, no, these people think you are like the mafia. Like they want nothing to do with this business. I'm like, me? The mafia? Like I'm just a woman with children that need a place to live. But it's so drastic. It's either they love us, whether it's, someone we're going to rent a home from or do business with, or they hate us. They're just like red flag danger. We don't want her in our home. And it was a long process to find what should have been a very quick move and situation turned into months until I found my new home that I'm in, thankfully. And that landlord absolutely loved me and is now a client of the spa. So
Amazing.
It's like I said, it's either absolutely not or we're all in. There's no in between. It doesn't matter what our income is. It doesn't matter, that we do our taxes. They think it's danger, or that they think that we run our business out of our home. And I'm thinking like, we have a brick and mortar business. This isn't happening in my basement. But the perception to people who are quite naive as far as I'm concerned, that's what it is.
It's so frustrating because that is the epitome of being stigmatized right there and discriminated against. And you're right, there are definitely people that are none the wiser or take that like media assumption of what you see in like movies or the news or something like that. And you know that frustrates me. I bitch about it anytime I see nonsense like that on television.
Mm.
Like we don't deal with enough already. Now we need CP24 or Fox News or some opinion person jumping in and adding to our daily complications. Because what frustrated me, obviously, as your best friend watching you go through this, is I couldn't help. I couldn't do anything other than offer to co-sign, but like we have the same business. So how does that even help? Like I'm irrelevant to the story. But it doesn't matter even longevity of the business. Like you could own a laundromat, have been open for 6 months and be completely unstable.
Mm.
Meanwhile, we're 15 years deep and you're telling me that's not enough. I mean, the assumption of affluency and wealth with our industry. I mean, I think to assume it's criminal is just such a jump and jarring to hear. But you would think the first assumption, nightclub owner, restaurant owner, strip club owner, rub and tug owner, like, oh, these people have money. So it might be like, why would you not think, oh, rent will be paid or mortgage will be paid, or like there's no reason to worry about a person like that. Even seeing that you're a mom with kids, like who's operating out of the house? That's not, I've seen your house. There's no place to operate out of your house. That's crazy talk. But that is the stigma. And so regardless of, we struggled financially being new business owners. Our first, God, 2 years, it was like all out of pocket, no income whatsoever, us there every day manning the fort, like any business owner does at the beginning. We had two nickels to rub together and nothing to vouch for. And you would think we'd be over that by now, that we're this far in, we're successful women, we're established, we're stable. I don't think either of us have ever missed a mortgage payment in our life. So, like the fact that that is something to be judged against, and they would rather take somebody who has maybe held a 9 to 5 job for 7 months, or some other thing that like people don't take seriously. I can understand, the trends having to change if someone has to take, the fact that you're a YouTuber seriously, or a content creator, or an influencer. Like these are job titles that didn't have much weight for a long time or didn't even exist until recently. And those tides are now turning where you can vouch for your income as long as you file in those taxes. But like you said, we even pay all our damn taxes and you still can't find a place to live. Insanity.
Yeah,
Absolute
yeah.
insanity.
Well, and I think
And
those that I know our reach is broad here, but those that know the Toronto real estate market, um, it's extremely competitive. So when we're in a
mhm,
situation like that, and they're saying, okay, we have Riley here who owns a massage parlor, or we have Brenda who works at IBM. Brenda's just going to be taken. Like, doesn't
mhm,
matter if I make more, or it doesn't matter the situation. They're in a position that they can choose, and we're not going to be picked. Is the point?
yeah, so frustrating and so unfair, so uneven the dice. It just makes no sense to me. We experienced a lot of that as well through the pandemic. It was kind of dicey trying to figure out what category we like fell into, um, because it's weird, our bylaws don't categorize us as adult entertainment, but federal laws do. And adult entertainment was not a considered category when it came to the pandemic relief funds, which in Canada they called CERB, CERB. And whether it was the business loans, whether it was the personal payments that were coming in for most people every, what was it, week, 2 weeks, something like that, as we did not know how long this was going on. We didn't qualify for jack shit. And it was absolutely frustrating because in that regard of when we were allowed to be open or in lockdown, we fell under personal care. So we were the same as manicurists, hair salons, aesthetic centers, stuff like that. But we don't fall into that category when it comes to government funding, nor a tax bracket, nor a licensing or legal structure. So who are we and where do we go?
Mm.
How is it so dicey? And yet again, licensed, pay our taxes, established for X amount of years. How do we not qualify for at least some support in a global crisis? You're supporting the whole rest of the country. What about us? And that was obviously a very common struggle, not just for owners, but for workers in the industry too. It's not considered a legitimate job, even the fact that they're licensed and pay taxes. So where does that fall? But if you own a pot store, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Right. The irony, the fun irony of it all. So those frustrations come up. I've felt it with mortgage applications as well, trying to get a loan. We've struggled with business loans at times when we've needed them for, renovations or reasons that we wanted to borrow money instead of using our own. And the way a bank will look at you is like you have three heads and are speaking an alien language, because they're like, are you joking me right now? And again, I'll say it, we're coming in with stability. Like, you're lending money to people that want to start a new business, that are just trying to like soft launch something, or just come out the gate with an idea. And we didn't qualify that when we started either. That's why we had to go private lenders and find private money, which led to all the fuckery of people trying to mess up our funds. So, it's just as frustrating sitting in a bank being rejected for the same damn reasons, and yet we're here with a proper application that's flawless, absolutely flawless. It's so frustrating. I absolutely hate it. I find that it also can affect relationships. It can affect dating. It can affect friendships. It can definitely affect family relationships. I think that we both were blessed that our families didn't shun us for owning this business at all. But it could have gone that way easily. Would happen to lots of people. That's why most people use an alias and keep private and aren't face forward like this, because that's not the norm, because of the stigma and the discrimination. And that weighs into so many other things. But it can be hard as single women to date. You want to have a normal, hi, how are you, get to know you conversation. Well, what do you do for a living? When do you tell somebody? When do you not tell somebody? Will they judge you? Would their family judge you? Or would they think of it the opposite and think, oh, here's my money ticket. I'm gonna get a free ride with this chick. Like, there's so much that goes into it.
I also think like in a different aspect of this in relationships is, I think a lot of people assume as well that we would just be very open-minded in relationships with sharing our partner, for example, or allowing our partners to go to Muse, or we would just have that open-mindedness, which is not true. I'm extremely territorial over my relationships. But it's just an assumption that's made that if we own a business like this, then we must partake and we must go to swingers clubs and we must live a certain life that is not a bad life. It's just that's not necessarily the case. We can be different from Riley and Emily when we're in our homes, right?
Absolutely. And that's, I think, part of why we still maintain our dual aliases and our dual identities, because it still allows us a bit of that separation. Even though I don't think most people consider this, but we work every day, every single day. The spa is open every day. And even on Christmas Day or New Year's Day, where it's closed, what does every good boss do? They message all their staff and say, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, blah, blah, blah. And so you're on your phone talking to 45 people, just like you did the day before. So there's no days off. You're always the owner. It doesn't matter if it's your birthday. It doesn't matter if you're drunk on a night out with your girlfriend. It doesn't matter if you're on a first date. It doesn't matter. You are that rude person at the table answering the phone. And so in order to maintain any kind of like work-life balance or privacy of what is private and ours, we still maintain that separation with our names. Even when you and I have conversations on the phone, the way we address each other is completely different. It'll come out with the real names when we're talking about, what are we doing for lunch next Tuesday? And then as soon as we jump in the same conversation to a discussion about a meeting, all of a sudden we're Emily and Riley again. People that hear us must think we're crackheads just talking about four people when two people exist. But it has to be done, because I would hate to hear. I remember when my family first found out about the business, and they thought it would be supportive in a certain environment to call me Emily. And I almost fell over backwards, because that's the last thing I ever want to hear about out of my parents' name, like mouths, right? And at the same time, I was like, that's how I operate. So they were respecting the boundaries that I'm demonstrating. When it's work, I'm Emily. When it's not, I'm not. But then hearing it, I was like, eek, yikes. But at the same time, it still allows for that difference, that differentiation between the two are two worlds, and it's constant, and it's a juggle every single day. I think it can affect friendships too. I only ever lost one friend over this biz. It was weird because she was a friend of mine since, gosh, grade two. And had no problem when I used to work in the industry. But as soon as I became an owner, it was a problem. And of a very close knit group of girlfriends that I've had since elementary school, she's the only one that took issue with it. And the only one of the five of us that doesn't speak to me still to this day. And I never understood why. It was never really explained to me. But it was my only experience in terms of being, I felt rejected more than discriminated against, but it was very along those lines. Like somehow it was okay when I was a sex worker, but it was not okay as soon as I became an owner of an adult business. And the tone was very like, I can't be associated with you.
Right.
And that felt very discriminatory to me because what? Why? Like, especially someone you've known that long. If I just met you at the grocery store today, who cares what you think? If you don't like it, sayonara. But someone like that, it hurt me real bad. And I remember being confused about it for a very long time. It still gets me in my feelings because Facebook, right? People post their pics of their kids and their parties or whatever. And if I'm the one that's excluded, that hurts. It hurts everybody's feelings. But it can happen as easily in love situations. I mean, it hasn't happened to me. I haven't, met the parents and them and like, oh, the hooker.
Right.
Like that's never happened. But I'm also 15 years out from having been a sex worker at all. So there's a bit of, I guess, grace there. But it can happen in all kinds of different situations. And we actually had a former staff member of ours I saw had an issue with some pretty intense discrimination recently. I won't share the whole story because it's her story to tell, but she had been going to see a beauty provider for some beauty care needs that she needed. And I don't know how, but somehow this person found out she was a sex worker. And after having been, forget what it was, esthetician or hairstylist, manicurist, something like that for years, suddenly was, I can't see you anymore because you're a sex worker and I don't agree with that and I will no longer service you. And it was just completely cut off. It reminded me of that legal battle in America years ago about a bakery that refused to make a cake for a gay couple getting married. And it's like, who are you to judge those kinds of things? And I understand if it goes against your personal beliefs, but then don't be gay or don't be a sex worker. I don't see what that has to do with cake or doing your nails. Like, what? If anything, especially in the beauty industry, you would make more money off sex workers than anything else. Our beauty bills are huge. Like like an actress, you have to be manicured from head to toe all the time. So why reject that money?
No, I agree.
It's strange. I remember she tweeted about it. I was completely shocked. I messaged her almost immediately, being like, "What the fuck? Are you serious? Did this really happen? Like, really, really happen?" She's like, "Oh yeah, it's a fight now." And like, she's private. She doesn't want to have to take it to like a court situation. But gosh, if she wasn't, she'd have a hell of a case because it was written out to her in messages. Like she's got written proof of the discrimination and the exact reason why. It's unfortunate that people judge like that. It's super frustrating. We've seen it with our staff at times too. If they're ever outed or decide to tell their family or a boyfriend or something, it's a risk. It could cost you a whole comfy X amount of years relationship. It can cost you, being closer to your family. It can cost all kinds of things. And yet, on the flip side, I'll say it again, you can own a pot shop in Ontario and they just upped how many you can own.
Right.
No longer is it 75 stores, you can have 150 of them. And that's not stigmatized as being anything. Listen, I'm pro pot. I wouldn't call them dealers by any stretch. But the premise is kind of ironic when you think about it, because we're licensed and legal and been established a lot longer than that. What's the catch here,
Well, and I think the thing is too, it's mostly people being naive. But for those that at least allow a conversation, whether that's your hairstylist or a friendship or a partner, for them to understand our licenses, which is going back, or our license, which goes back to our like early episodes, is listen,
Hmm.
these 25 are going to exist. They are grandfathered into the city of Toronto and they will be held by someone. And the way I see it is, thank God that one of them is held by us because we provide a safe space for these girls. We try to, provide a space that can, catapult them into life, into a different situation than what they started at. So if
Hmm.
they're always going to be here. And I think by us owning one only benefits the community, the staff, the customers, everybody involved. And I even like playing with people a little bit at times when they ask me what I do. And it depends on the situation completely. It was funny. About a month ago, I was around one of my parents and a friend of theirs asked. And because
Mm.
my parents both know and they both respect my choices, but I know, they may not always want all the details to like their golfing
Right.
buddy or something like that. Then I'll just glaze over it like, oh, I run a spa, and leave it at that. Other times that if I know this person's judgmental, I'll be like, oh, it's a massage parlor, like the kind your husband would go to. Like I'll be more catty about it. Um, people get a different answer depending on the day, my mood, and the way they're reacting to me.
I love you. You're to me. I wonder why people think I'm the asshole, because that's fucking priceless right there. The kind your husband would go to. I want to make it a goal in my life to say that to somebody now.
It hasn't happened often, but I mean, if they're acting a certain way, I'm just going to
Hmm.
shut them down with that.
100%. Just go out the gate with it. That's so damn funny. I love confronting judgment like that because you really leave people in a kind of moment. Like, what are they going to say? Like, they're going to clutch their pearls and go, "Oh my God." So, okay, conversation's finished. I love that you just shut it down.
Well, it's just going to shut you down from wanting to talk to me further, which I never really wanted to
For
talk to you
sure.
anyway. So,
But I totally understand, the parentals not wanting to necessarily have everybody know everything. I get that. I just like you and I sometimes would say, whatever. I've done the spa thing before too. The problem with that is if a woman overhears you, they're like, "Oh
I
my
know.
God, so I could go? Like, how much is it for a manicure?" And I'm like,
What's your website?
now I have to
Yeah,
backpedal everything. I have said a spa for men sometimes, or a massage place. I'll leave it generic like
massage
that.
place.
But there's always some questions. And yeah, if they think it's an RMT situation, they think, if we're local, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's closer than my guy. What are the prices like?" And I'm like, "Oh
Right.
God, here we go again." It's
What I
tough.
found to be a really good answer is something along the lines of like um, a massage spa, but in the adult entertainment industry. So it
Oh, I
leaves it a
like
little
that.
bit like it should give them the direction without being too explicit.
I like that a lot because it literally puts all the labels necessary and
Right.
doesn't really need much more to be said than that. You're so good
Mhm.
at the shutdown. Mic drop moments are so good. It's true though. And like I said, even in dating, it could be weird. Do you tell someone that at the like right off the hop? And I've tried multiple different ways, where I wait till it's further in, or do I wait until, or do I not wait and just say, do I put it in my like dating bio? Like, where do I put this information? Because it can make you a target on both angles. And I do remember one time in particular that I chose to withhold the information. Um, and actually, it was, if my timeline and my memory is correct, it was before I retired. It was before we were open, but it was close to opening. Like I was about to make the switch from attendant to owner. Either which way, I was in a relationship with someone that it had only been a few months. And it was the first time I was like, I'm going to try withholding it and not telling them necessarily what I do or what I'm going to be doing, etc. Not that it had worked out bad the other way, but I was just curious, like, would it have been more productive if, or, would it have led to maybe more understanding later or some empathy or a better connection? I don't know. It was literally an experiment. Um, and you, again, little Miss Privacy, pulled a fast one on me. That was almost as good as the Peter story because I was moving and I was packing. And so all of my stuff was kind of, that day before moving where you kind of move everything closer to the door. or like everything's in the corner of one room. So when the movers come, it's all kind of in one place and they don't have to traipse through the whole house or whatever. And somehow I was a little bit barricaded in the bathroom and, and you were helping move some shit. And this guy and his, I think it was like his best buddy was there helping move boxes, all the heavy stuff. And out of the blue, you were like, Emily, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, excuse me.
Oh, dear
And
God.
you came running into the bathroom and you, instead of acting normal and be like, why did I just call you my cousin's name or like making a play for it? You come running into the bathroom and go, oh my God, what did I do? It's like, well, there goes that. Ah,
Yeah.
shit.
I'm
The
so
relationship
sorry.
didn't last much longer. It wasn't worth its weight to even last, but that was an oops.
Oh,
Was a
yeah.
big mistake. But it was like for the guy, I remember he immediately put so many dots together. Like it all just went click, click, click in his head. And it was my fault. I was still young. I was clubbing a lot. I was in an era of my mid to late 20s where I was out partying with my massage friends. This guy was always very curious, could not understand why I had such a collection of hotties as my friendship group. Like there was no uggos. And everyone was a different nationality because we had a big mixed bag. So we had like the token of everybody there. And he would always ask questions. Where you guys get all this money? How come you guys don't have to like, how can you party on a Tuesday? Blah, blah, blah. And I would come up with an answer for everything. And as soon as you did that, he was like, either you're a stripper or you work in a rub and tug. And I was like, oh, shit.
That's terrible. I'm sorry.
Needless to say, that relationship didn't last long, but it was an experiment, and I learned not to do that again. I'm going to always tell the truth. I'm still on the fence though if it should be a right out the gate thing.
I feel like when you're meeting someone, that's one of the get to know you questions. So if
Hmm.
it's not out of the gate, are you lying?
I don't want to lie.
Right?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And in that kind of a scenario, like I've never done like a speed dating, but let's say it's a speed dating where you actually sit down face to face with someone and it's like, tell me about yourself. What do you do for a living? How old are you? Where did you grow up? Like those kind of questions. Is it okay to be like, I own a massage place and change the subject? Would it work to even say in the adult entertainment industry? Like, or does that fuck up our 3 minutes before the bell rings and you switch
Right.
to the next person? Like, how much detail do you say? And I would never want, like, if it's a good connection and it's moving forward, I would never want that person to be like, you deceived me at the beginning,
Mhm.
even if I thought I was telling somewhat of the truth. So, like, is it okay to say a massage place? What if that ends up your husband? Like, did I lie? I don't know if I lied. I was vague. It was blurry because there's still that fear of being financially taken advantage of too, right? And the privacy. And if you're pissed about it, or God forbid, you know someone like there's just Toronto's a small city. I'll be damned if all of a sudden someone I'm dating is so and so's cousin. Like it just it can blow up
Yeah.
in so many ways, and so it ends up a weird juggle. And it's no different than you're looking at like a mortgage application and it says employment, and you pause for a minute before you fill it out, and you're like, what do I write?
All I write is our Ontario Inc. number. That's it.
That's perfect. That's
I mean,
absolutely
they
perfect,
do
actually.
search it, but that's what I put.
I do that on the airplane. Well, they don't do it anymore, but for years you had to fill out those custom forms
Mhm.
on airplanes, and your employment would often be there. And that's the only time I would drop the Ontario Inc. number because I'm not getting stuck in some other country because I use
They think you're trafficking.
right. And that's a real risk. I mean, sex workers that travel definitely encounter that kind of discrimination too at airports and have been stranded places. I know many independent escorts that are not allowed in America just because they're known to be going on business.
Interesting.
So, right? It's a weird juggle. And I feel like, you know what, life weeds things out for you sometimes. And the people that are not for you are not going to be accepting of it. And the home that you're not supposed to be in will not be the home for you. But it would be nice if that journey could be shortened a little, or if we could take away a few of the bumps, or maybe not have people that make that face when they are team stigma,
Right.
because it's a shitty feeling all around. I mean, nobody likes to be discriminated against. It's bad enough in many forms and isms out there in society. It's frustrating when you switch out of being a worker you own a legitimate business and you're just trying to buy a house, like, or
Right.
I'm just trying to get through a pandemic and feed your kids, or, survive, keep the lights on, things that are normal things in a global emergency. We were all fighting for toilet paper. Let's be serious, right? So would I not get some because I used to be a hooker? Like, what the fuck? Like, but people will take it to extremes sometimes and really scarlet letter. And those just aren't our people. But I wish I could navigate life where they would stay 20 feet away from me so that I never had to encounter them at all. I swear, if that means I need a bumper sticker, I'll put one.
Yeah.
It keeps all the, maple magas away. I mean, like, please don't come anywhere near me. I believe in democracy. Get out of here. Sex work is real work.
No, I mean, as hard as it is for us, or sorry, I shouldn't say it is hard for us because they're weeding themselves out. They're doing us a
Yeah.
favor. Um, whether that's friendships or romantic relationships. But I think for the girls, especially, and I know you could probably
Mm,
relate back to this years ago, but for them, it's different. It's current. They're in this position. And again, the bane of our existence, boyfriends and water.
yeah.
But they have boyfriends. So for
Hmm.
them, it's actually like, am I going to be honest about where I'm going every day or not? And that's a really big struggle that most of them have to deal with at some point.
It's so true. And I don't have a right answer when they ever
Mm,
ask for advice on that, because it's so it's so nuanced. It so depends on the person, the circumstances, how you tell them, when you tell them, if you tell them. It sucks being caught lying if they find
mhm,
out on their own. I mean, there's always, anytime you have bad news to tell a partner, is it worse to tell them yourself and risk it all right in that moment? Or is it worse for them to find it on their own and
mhm,
wish that you had just come to them? Like, it sucks either way. Um, and I find we can always tell when a girl has gotten into a newer relationship. Even if she still is on the same money goal, she still wants to pay her OSAP by, October 2025. She suddenly is backtracking on the shifts, or suddenly I'm hearing from clients that she's a little more restrictive, or she's been a little bit distant, and I kind of, pick up my phone and call her message and be like, "What's up with you lately? Seems like
are
things are
you
a
in love?
little bit off." Yeah. And it turns out it's a love story. And, I just met this guy and it's going really well. And so now I feel a little guilty, or I just don't want to be there all the time. It can be hard to have a dual identity and to have to shut off one portion, walk through the door, and be another person. I think most people learn to leave their home life at the door when you walk in the office.
Mm,
But that's really different when it's intimate and naked and orgasmic and things. Like, it's hard to shut off your brain when someone's between your legs feasting. Like, these things are a lot of, it's a juggle and a struggle, and I see them. I wish I had a perfect answer. It's one of those mentor moments where I wish I had some sort of ABC. Do this, this, and this, and it should be okay. Maybe it won't be great, but it should be okay. I wish I could protect them from those potential hurts. But the alternative risk of telling, especially when you're young, of telling a guy is, again, that he's going to take financial advantage or abuse of you. And we see that happen with a lot of the girls. She's now the breadwinner and he's decided he doesn't want to work. He just wants to play video
mhm.
games all day. And I'm like, how are you this hot, this successful, this makes this much money, and you're with this deadbeat on the couch? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
When he should be out, if he was smart, he would be out on his hustle, and then y'all would both be rich. Like, let's just let's just be a team, kids, because the ease of taking advantage, it's no different than misspending your own money if you're the worker. It's nice
Mhm.
to know you can go into work and make X amount, $100, or $1,000, or, whatever dollars in just one shift. The temptation to go out and party the day before rent can be kind of tempting when
Yeah.
you can just call last minute, get an extra shift, and pay rent at 6 o'clock. Like, it's fine.
Mhm.
Um, and so at what point do you tell a man that, or even hiding that ability to access money can be difficult to lie about? Where are you going? Where are your work clothes? Why do you have to be so maintenance all the time? Why are you always not available to answer your phone?
Mhm.
So many things. You know, Nowadays we have air tags and location things on phones, and it's a lot of work for a sex worker to keep her privacy. And I think for her safety, it's vital. But for your conscious, that's a whole different story. It's a whole different discussion. And
Mhm.
really only she can decide for herself. But oh gosh, I wish there was a formula to help them because I
Yeah.
see their struggle. It's tough. It's definitely tough.
Yeah.
Fun. I think we've been blessed to figure out who our circle is, who our people are, to not be judged by family and friends. And I think it makes us more confident when we go out into the world and talk the talk or start a podcast and tell the entire planet about it. Hey.
I have
But
one story that you're going to remember, kind of more
uh-oh.
touching on privacy, which you just
Mm,
mentioned, like our friends are supportive. We keep very few. I think you mentioned in a previous episode, any more than 5 friends is too many.
yes.
And these are rules we really try to live by. So, a personal story, when I did move to my new home, when I finally got accepted by my landlord, it's a new space. I have 5 friends total. Actually, I don't even know that there's 5. Most are family. And those 5 people are the only people that know where I live. Where I live to me is a very private thing. It makes me feel comfortable knowing that people don't know where I live.
Right.
Um, so it was my birthday that just passed. And the 5 people that are in my life, I celebrated with, spoke to, saw, went out with. I had celebrated with them all kind of individually. And
Right.
I think it was the day of or after my birthday, mysterious flowers showed up at my door. They were beautiful. Um, and I was like, and most people would be excited by this. I was terrified. I was like, who sent me these flowers? I've seen
Right.
everybody. I've received flowers from almost everybody I saw. And so I started calling people saying, like, did you send me something? And everyone's like, no, like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And I remember my father saying to me, like, oh, it's great. You have a secret admirer. And I'm thinking, this is terrifying. It's a stalker. Who knows where I live? Um, and it turns out it was later in that evening, and my brain is just spinning. Like, I'm not comfortable. Um, and Emily sends me a message and she's like, did you get my flowers? And my heart just like, what a relief. Because I called her immediately. I'm like, why would you send me flowers? I just saw you yesterday. Me thinking it couldn't be her because she just would have handed them to me. But it turns out she wanted to surprise me on my doorstep, and the company left out the card. So everything was okay and it was safe and it was one of my 5 people. But that level of privacy that I think we both take such comfort in,
Yeah.
um, that moment I was like, who knows where I live? Like this, it's this paranoid feeling. And not that anything severe or bad has ever happened, but it's just a
Right.
level of comfort
The what
of
if?
knowing there's only a small circle and those are the people I trust. Like privacy walls are always up.
It's true. There are 3 people that know where I live, and nobody else needs to know that. It freaks me out altogether. But it was such a mixed emotion moment when you called me after that because I was howling because it's hilarious. Like the way you told me the story, you had your kids were involved. They were like, "Mom, what's happening? There's a crazy person." Like, do you want to sleep in our room? Like scared. That's when I found out that you keep a bat near your bed. Like, what the fuck? You're like, they were like, Mom, get the bat. Make sure the like, Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to be romantic. Like,
Oh,
send my little lady love some flowers on her damn birthday. Shame on the flower company. They forgot the damn card. That would have solved everybody's
yeah.
problems.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I felt horrible because I just put your whole fam through this like trauma. Your father's like, oh God, like
I'm just glad I found out when I
dying.
did. And had I gone
I
to
was
bed with
dying.
my bat, it would have been a rough night. And yeah, I'm raising these poor children to be hyper paranoid, but it's my comfort level.
Oh, bless your sweet soul. That is so damn funny. Oh, I was howling and I felt guilty for days. I was like, I actually traumatized everybody in the household
But this
because
is the state of our life because most people would open the door and see pretty flowers and be like, oh, who sent
that's
them
so
to me? And I'm
nice.
like, who's here? Like, it's just a different level.
It's so true. I feel like most people would have posted on their Facebook or something or their
Yeah.
Instagram story and been like, thanks to whoever dropped these for me, blah, blah, blah. So the person would reply and be like, oh, good, you got the flowers. no, no. You're just like, what's happening? Oh, shit. So funny. I'm so sorry. I will never use that flower company again. I'm telling you, because they had specific instructions too. A mess, an absolute mess. But that's how private we have to be. I mean, if you listen to any of the episodes 1 through 9, you can hear how absolutely crazy our lives have been with people attacking us personally. And my house had been robbed and toilet papered and all kinds of different things, and photographs of it plastered on the internet, and all these things. Moving is a very big deal to me. And if I move, especially with the intent of diving further into my privacy, the less people I want to know who and where, like where I live, or even what area I live in. I don't think anyone needs to know that. And you're right, it creates a very strange, like visceral, like reaction of just fear and a little bit of panic and like, oh God, who's after me? Who knows? Who's watching? And it brings back so many of those like horrific memories. And I think normal people would be like, oh, is it an ex or something? Or, it's like, did a neighbor get a delivery on the wrong door, or something so vanilla? And we're like, with a bat beside her bed. It's fucking hilarious. So priceless. And I'm so sorry again.
No, they were beautiful.
A little
And now
birthday
I'll always
trauma
know
for you.
it was Emily. She's romantic, so I should have expected it to be her.
I definitely am. I learned from my daddy. He's the most romantic man I know. But I think being romantic to your friends is so important because it shows them how much you love them. It should not be delivered with a heart attack. That's the problem. Probably gave you a few extra wrinkles and gray hairs from that. I owe you some Botox and like a nap because that kind of
I'll
stress.
take it.
It's just not cool. But I remember even on the phone, you like yelled to the kids, "It was me, it was Emily," and they were like, "Oh, thank God." Everyone can sleep well in the village tonight. It'll be fine.
It was such a relief.
Hilarious. So there's the extent of our privacy needs. As open as we are, I think people would be surprised to know that we still are hyper vigilant about certain things. It's just the way it's got to go. It's just the way it's got to go. All right. I think that wraps up our discrimination episode. Discrimination, privacy. The wild ride, at least until we jump more into sex work law, in which case we'll get into a ton more stigma. But for now, that's what affects our daily life as owners. It's kind of a weird piece that I don't think people think about or consider, but I'm sure other owners and strip club owners all deal with the same kind of nonsense at some point. I think society needs to get over it. Let us live. We're just trying to live. We just want to live. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the Patreon. We've got more juicy episodes coming up there that are exclusive for our patrons. And follow us here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Catch us on all social media that's linked in the bio below. And we will see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.